Okay. Ooh. I think we have liftoff. Oh, God. Yeah, we really have the echo, don't we? Is that better there? How about that? Oh, well, get the advantage of hearing us all twice. Okay, that's great. Okay, so welcome to the Committee of the Whole meeting of January 13th, kind of a historic event for Metchosin. We do have regrets from Councillor Gray, who unfortunately is under the weather, so he's out there watching. Hope you feel better soon. And we do acknowledge that we're residing in the territory, traditional territory of the Shaanu and Suk First Nations. So we have an agenda. What we're going to do is to have public participation following the agenda, but we'll also have the opportunity for public input after Councillor Shuken gives his report on the priorities for 2025. And with that, could we have approval for the agenda with the addition of the pinks? Moved by Councillor Donaldson, seconded by Mayor Little. All in favor? And so this is a really new beginning for us. The whole idea is to kind of streamline the process, particularly take some of the pressure off staff as far as doing multiple agendas for all the different committees and so on. It won't change that much, except that there won't be having individual meetings with individual chairs, but there'll still be the liaisons for the various like the environment, although we won't be doing that tonight, but the environment and the parks and trails and public works and so on will all be in this agenda, and each councillor will speak on their particular topic. So with that, we will move on to public participation. So please give your name and address, and keep an eye out on the little lights on the table down there, because it'll be green while you have your 4 minutes. And if it turns yellow, then you're just about up. So do we have anyone for public participation tonight?
Sasha Kubicek, 565 Wooten Road. I'd like to comment on agenda item 6A. For those of you that don't know, Metchosin has many properties that fall under the Agriculture Land Reserve, and these are earmarked lands by the province that are agriculturally valuable properties for food production. These properties have provincial rules that protect these lands and are governed by a governing body of the province called the Agriculture Land Commission. So we have ALR lands and an ALC governing body. What gets confusing is these lands are within the District of Metchosin, so we also have district bylaws. And then the provincial rules as well. At a workshop last fall where 3 councillors attended, we learned a whole bunch of things about the ARLR and the ALC, and what we were learning from other districts was that many districts are amalgamating their bylaws with the ALC regulations to have a unified, simplified message to landowners. You can see where things get complicated if the district approves something for a property, but then there's a different regulation according to the province. This makes it much easier for bylaw enforcement and just a clearer transparency for landowners. The agenda item deals with the highest risk for agricultural land right now, which is compromising the soil and bringing on soil deposits and removing soil. What I'm hoping that with the recent Ag Plan approval and the district's commitment to agriculture, that there's going to be a higher duty of care for agricultural land reserve properties, and an appetite to amalgamate and have ALC rules that mirror the bylaws, so that property owners are understanding the same message for their property use. An example right now is for a soil deposit permit, there's no way that, there's nowhere that it flags it that this is a ALR property being applied for or a regular property. And same thing for a building permit. There's nothing that differentiates what type of property is, and then there's that discrepancy in the rules. So I'm hoping that this is something that council will be favorable for when they get to that agenda item. Thank you.
Thank you. So, well, unfortunately, it's not going through outside the building if we don't, I don't think, if we don't use the mics. Is that right? Or, yeah. So, well, it's just something we're going to have to look into before the next meeting. Anyway, we'll just carry on. Do we have anybody else for public participation?
Just to respond to the notes about the mic, and based on my observations from last week, if the speaker, all speakers, make sure that the mic is directed at their mouth and don't stand too close. Are you hearing me all right in the audience? Yeah. Then it makes a big difference to the clarity. The other thing is to make sure that you don't turn your head away when you're speaking. Because when you do that, your voice is lost entirely. So those are two things that I think might help our general ability to hear everyone. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Certainly sorry about that. We really hope to get that corrected as soon as possible. Anyone else for public participation?
Hi, Darren Brown, Graceland. I'm here tonight to address concerns about transparency and fiscal responsibility and community priorities, particularly regarding the Duke Road East Trail and the Parks and Trails Committee. So we've got an active transportation plan and the Duke Road East Trail Survey. First, I'd like to ask about the active transportation plan. When will the public see it? Will council review it first and then public? Transparency is key here, and the public deserves to understand how decisions like the Duke Road East Trail align with that larger framework. Why are we planning phase 2 and 3, according to minutes, of the Duke Road Trail when phase 1 remains divisive, lacks broad community support, stretches our budget beyond its limits? We can't afford phase 1. It's time to prioritize projects that unite us, not divide us. I think it's important to make a point of clarification. Gas tax revenue is not free money. Gas tax revenue is an important tool to address pressing infrastructure and environmental needs. It's a limited fund to maximize long-term community benefits. Every dollar spent on one project is a dollar not available for other more pressing projects. Gas tax funds can be used for a broad range of projects. Has council fully explored the broader opportunities for these funds? Are there bridges that need repair? I can think of at least one contentious one. Could the funds support drinking water infrastructure, like the CRD water station? How about improvements to wastewater systems, like at our old school? How about brownfield or contaminated sites? Are there any areas that council might be familiar with that might require prioritization there? What evidence supports that the Duke Road East Trail is the most urgent and impactful project for Metchosin? Are there not more critical projects that would require broader benefits, that would provide broader benefits to residents? So I also want to bring up the conditions of our existing trails. So right now, many of our current trails in our community are unusable. There's downed trees, there's washed out road base materials, and yet we're proposing to spend, I think, $20,000, additionally $20,000 on the Duke Road East Trail. Let's ask PTASC to fix what is broken first. That would, restoring immediate trails will provide immediate benefits to the broader community without additional environmental disruption and controversy. How can we justify building a new trail when the trails we already have are unsafe and inaccessible? One other point I wanted to raise was, now I understand that new terms of reference are being drafted for the Parks and Trails Committee, and I want to know when will the public see these drafts? Will there be an opportunity for input before they're finalized? Additionally, does the committee need subcommittees? How does this support or hinder transparency? We've seen no minutes or records from these subcommittees, and this lacks accountability and raises concerns. The new terms of reference must include clear mandates for public reporting and ensure these processes remain transparent. Any changes to advisory select committees should be conducted through an open process where community input is actively sought and incorporated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just one thing I might ask is that if people have knowledge about parts of our trail network that are unsafe and inaccessible, they really should contact the district office. We have a trails coordinator who, he's in a different circumstance right now, but he has a network of people who will actually go out and make the needed repairs. And PTASC is quite skilled in doing that. So again, if there's knowledge of parts that need some work, please contact us.
Okay,
Thank you.
maybe you could mention that again in your time for your report. So we're going to, unless there's anyone else for public participation, we're going to move on to adoption of minutes. So we're going to take these as a group. If there are any corrections to any one of them or more of them, we'll pull that one out, move adoption of the rest, and then go back and get the corrections for whatever ones that are not or need working on. So we will be looking to adopt the Finance Committee meeting of October 7th, the Special Finance Committee meeting, budget meeting of October 9th, Special Finance Committee budget meeting of October 24th, Special Finance Committee budget meeting of November 12th, Community Planning Committee meeting of November 18th, the Environment and Natural Areas Committee of November 18th, the Special Finance Committee budget meeting of November 21st, the Special Finance Budget meeting of December 5th, and the Public Works and Protective Services Committee meeting of December 9th. So could I have a motion for adoption moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. Any discussion? All in favor? Okay, we'll do the same thing with the receipt of minutes. So we have the Agriculture Advisory Select Committee meeting of December 10th, Parks and Trails Advisory Select Committee meeting of December 17th, Environmental Advisory Select Committee meeting of November 26th, Healthy Communities Advisory Select Committee of November 26th, and the Firehouse Steering Committee meeting of December 4th. Motion for receipt.
Just one question, also the minutes from the Environment Advisory Committee for December 18th.
Oh, right, thank you, missed that one, and that one. So a motion to receive these minutes, moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. Discussion.
Thank you, Councillor. I just wanted to make one mention of the Parks and Trails Advisory meeting. I believe, sorry, I don't have them open in front of me, but I just wanted to acknowledge the work that had been done on the Latoria Community Bridge, which is the bridge that connects Duke Road East to the Far Hill Road. And this was a bridge that was built, it's referred to as the Latoria Community Bridge, because it was built with volunteers a number of years ago. Well, I just want to take my hat off to a number of volunteers and our public works staff who came over in December and did a bunch of work on that bridge to repair the timbers on the tread of the bridge. And notably, Mr. Ron Aubrey and Mr. Ken Williams as well were pivotal in getting that work done, as well as our own public works crew. So I just wanted to acknowledge
Okay,
that.
that's great. Maybe if we have any other things like that, you could bring them up in your councillor's update.
Okay.
Sorry, but,
I don't have a counselor's update specifically.
well, there you
but,
go.
yeah, next time.
Thank you, that's, we
Yeah.
do appreciate all that work, and that's,
For sure.
that's a lot. I haven't been to that bridge. I'd like to go and see it.
Yeah,
So, thank
it's
you.
Lovely.
All right, moving on to business advising, excuse me, which is the Pardon? Did we get I think we did. Did we vote on the minutes? Okay, I'll call the question then on the receipt of the minutes. All in favor? Thanks. All right, we're moving on. So this is the Agriculture Advisory Select Committee recommendations from the December 10th meeting. So we'll move this over to Councillor Donaldson.
Thank you. So when the Agriculture Advisory Select Committee met December 10th, there were a number of topics as outlined in the minutes, and these are the highlights of some recommendations and things we'd like to move on. The first one being the geese update, which has been a topic across the region, actually. That the committee recommend council send a resolution to present at the Association of Vancouver Island Coastal Communities Convention to support a goose call and seek support from the Peninsula and Area Agricultural Committee, which is called PAC, municipalities for the resolution. And on the following page, the resolution reads, whereas Canada geese are an ongoing destructive element to agriculture on southern Vancouver Island through the disruption of growing fields, the consumption of crops, and the risks posed by avian influenza and E. coli contamination, and thus present risks to food security and the broader environment. And whereas previous management efforts such as egg addling, hazing, and selective harvesting have been demonstrated to be ineffective, leading to an ever-growing population of geese. Therefore, be it resolved that a cull of Canada geese be authorized by BC Environment and Parks, with coordination and planning of a cull taking place with key partners, including landowners, the BC Conservation Service, local governments, the regional districts, and others as may be necessary to undertake effective action. Motion to approve that resolution for AVICC. Yeah.
Okay, moved by Councillor Donaldson, seconded by Mayor Little. Discussion?
Just
Councillor.
note my support. Sorry, I just note my support for this. There's bound to be some complexities around this. I'm not totally privy to all of this, but because Canada geese are migratory birds, there may even be a federal arm in all of this. But I think it's worth making the pitch at AVICC, and we get some traction and get the discussion going. So.
Mayor Little?
Yeah, I'd support this motion as well. And I'm just wondering, through the chair to Councillor Donaldson, did we send a note to the CRD regarding the recent or more recent effects on agriculture fields in Metchosin from the geese? Did we send? Because that's something that we might want to do, is advocate directly to the CRD, since they do have a CRD goose management program.
That would be a good idea. All I recall is that you and I had met with the chair of the Agriculture Committee, and that was part of that discussion. I'm not sure if we did send a letter, so. Okay.
Well, I know for me, I know it's a problem, but I'm not quite ready to support this without a bit more information, like from the CRD and some agricultural experts that have, I'm sure this is a problem, not just here, but in other areas. And I'd really like to know how successful calls have been in other places, and just a little bit more information before I would support this.
Okay, so I can comment that in Partsville, they have done a call, which I understand has been successful to a degree. To what degree, that part I'm still missing that information. However, I had the opportunity to attend the PAC meeting last week, and as they went around the room and introduced themselves, every single farmer had a problem with geese on their properties. One farmer who grows corn, within 20 minutes of planting corn, an acre had been destroyed. That cost him $10,000. Another one who has vegetable crops, he's now in debt $20,000 to $40,000, and there's no insurance for producers when those sorts of things happen. Grain is another one. We're seeing a lot of that, of course, here in Metchosin. We're much smaller scale, but I do know that our produce crops are being ravaged by geese, and certainly the hay, as there's several hay fields now. This last summer especially, it was just dust. It was just gone to black mold, and you know, it's kind of like when you start seeing, you're in the market for looking for a car and then you see a car everywhere. Well, all of a sudden now I'm seeing geese everywhere, and it is a problem. And they're not leaving, they're not ones that migrate south and then come back. So in the backgrounder report, our esteemed chair had put this together, and there's more information there as well. So I'm prepared to present this at AVIC if I have the support of this council, and certainly will be connecting with my colleagues across the region as well in that regard for this convention.
Right, thank you. As I said, I would like a little bit more information, maybe some of those examples. I'd like to know what those, some of the efforts that those farmers say that, you know, had big losses from the geese, like what they had done to try to prevent that in advance. So at any rate, we'll call the question. So all in favor of this motion? And I'm opposed. That passes.
And then the second one. The second one is about the fill removal and placement on ALR land. As was mentioned from a local farmer here, Mr. Kubitschek. The motion reads that the committee recommend council direct staff to incorporate Agriculture Land Commission regulations, ALC policy L02, for soil removal or placement for properties within the Agriculture Land Reserve into the Metchosin Soil Removal and Deposit Bylaw number 402. The committee is recommending that the district make these ALR rules readily available and easy to access for farm owners within the ALR. This is one of our strategic priorities that I believe Councillor Shukin will review a little bit in a few minutes. So this is a motion I'd like to put forward to this committee.
Okay, it's moved by Councillor Donaldson, seconded by Mayor Little. Discussion? Any more discussion on it? Well, it's certainly a good idea. I mean, the more regulations we can have to prevent that soil dumping is for the better, for sure.
It will also help not only people on, you know, it's certainly the farmers on ALR lands or people who are not farming those lands to understand what it is to be successful in keeping the land in reserve and knowing what those rules are, and our staff for having, I actually have provided copies of this to our senior management staff as to what to be able to reference when people do come in and ask about these sorts of things. So if everybody has the same information, it makes it easier for us to manage our properties in accordance to those rules.
Okay, so we'll call the question unless there's any more discussion. All in favor? That passed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so from there we will go to the finance report, and Councillor Donaldson, you're up again.
The councillors up.
Yep.
Okay, so in the councillors update, got a comment here, or some points regarding the Juanifica Water Distribution Commission bulk water station. This will be partnership funding. 50% of it will be funded by ours, not by the taxpayers of this community, but by a climate grant that our esteemed CFO has sought out and consulted with the province as to the application of the grant. This was brought to light when we learned that a lot of people in our community, probably 25% of our residents, are on wells. And each year those wells are drying up a little bit earlier And the fact that, in January, February, and March, I hosted 3 different water talks, giving lots of information from various expertise in their fields, whether it's water capturing, how water goes in and out of the ground for recharge, wells, that sort of thing, including the engineer that I work with on the board of the Juan Fuca Water Distribution Commission, who gave a very informative presentation explaining the cost of bringing piped water in, which is at this point in time very cost prohibitive to our residents. So this was a more attainable option, was to have a bulk water station. There is one, the closest one probably is Henry Eng Way, which is very congested to get in and out of in the city of Langford. And the next one closest to us would be East Souk. So this gives an opportunity both for either the water trucks who are delivering to these residents or the residents themselves who can outfit their own trucks with a tote to be able to do this. So it's closer. If you're looking 20 years out, we don't know if the water is going to be more. I doubt with climate change, that sort of thing. So my notes here suggesting the sustainability and the GHG emissions, those sorts of things, are all things to be considered. So the our staff, as well as the Juan Fuca Water Distribution staff, have looked at 2 options. There's others, I suspect. It needs to be very open and accessible. The ones that I've seen in the other 2 locations are a drive-through, not a back-in. So not in an area where it could get congested. So open, accessible. The Water Commission will build it to their specs. It won't be something that we do. And then it's pay-as-you-go for the users. West Shore Parks and Recreation reported on this last week regarding the new master plan consultant who has been hired, which is Expedition Recreation and Lanark Consulting. And the Juan Fuca Arena, we've 2 arenas down there. There's the Q, and then there's the Juan Fuca Arena, which is up at the top. We're looking at actually keeping ice in there year-round, just the amount of use that the demand for that ice now. So we're looking at the cost effectiveness of that. And the agriculture, which we've just talked about, the goose cull resolution for AVIC and UBCM. And I just request that the Committee of the Whole support the recommendations, which we just done. Soil dumping workshop, which was November 13th. And again, request that the Committee of the Whole support the recommendation of the Ag Committee, and I thank you for doing that.
Thank you. Okay, now we'll move on to community planning. And as I mentioned before, following Councillor Shukin's presentation on the 2025 priorities, there will be an opportunity for public input. So, Councillor Shukin, take it away.
Oh, thank you very much. We're going to start with the Parks and Trails Master Plan. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So thanks very much. So in May of 2023, Council passed a resolution to move ahead with the Parks and Trails Master Plan, and that be launched in the fall of 2024. So PTASC has met a number of times, and we've now had this essentially as a standing item on our agenda. But what we wanted to do was get a little bit more specific about scope of work and the timelines of public engagement. So what you have before you is a proposal to proceed, and what I oversight on my part, I didn't provide any sort of recommendation or a motion. And what I would like to read one out to you if you see fit to move ahead with this. But what I'm hoping we can maybe do at the end of this is pass a motion that the committee recommend that council authorize Parks and Trails Advisory Select Committee to proceed with updating the district's Parks and Trails master plans based on the scope of work and timeline presented on January 13th, so today. So I'll just walk you through it very quickly here. So next slide is what is to be updated. So we have 2 Parks and Trails documents of the 2009 plan, so which focuses on trails exclusively, and then the Parks and Recreation Master Plan, which was developed in 1986. So those dates alone sort of beg for an update of these things. Both of these documents, they're wonderful. They have great information. We can retain some of that information and build it into the forthcoming plan. But they, as noted here, they have limitations. So the maps are awful. Again, the 2009 plan only focuses on trails, and the 86 plan, it's 29 years old, and we've moved. Even Metchosin has moved a long way from 1986. So the next slide shows the project scope. And I better just read this up. So PTASC will develop a master plan covering the care and management of Metchosin's parks and trails. The updated master plan will look ahead to the community's future parks and trails needs and aspirations. Informed by community input, the work will involve, and then I've got a number of bullets here. So developing a community profile relevant to parks and trails matters, identifying Metchosin's current parks and trails assets, and developing general management plans for each, identifying opportunities where Parks and Trails network could be expanded, then identifying trends, issues that are either impacting or could impact the network, Parks and Trails network, then improving the mapping that we have, and then clarifying process matters like PTASC's roles and responsibilities or an advisory committee's roles and responsibility. The Parks and Trails approach in new subdivisions, the need for regular plan reviews, finances, and possibly the use of the Parkland Acquisition Reserve. So that's the general scope that we want to start out with, and no doubt it will, change as we go along or adapt itself as we go along. So the public engagement is crucial on this, and our goal is to hold at least 2 open houses. Ideally, the first one will be in March of 2025. We have talked about maybe doing another session focused on the active transportation process and other sort of initiatives. We might piggyback with active transportation on that. Do a community-wide mail-out similar again to the active transportation mail-out that was done, information on the district website, article in the Muse, and then the PTASC regular meetings would be a forum for the master plan as well. So, and those are essentially happening every month. I think we met 9 or 10 times last year. So the proposed timelines, first public engagement session in March. From March to October, there's research and development of draft material for the master plan. In November of 2025, we do a second public engagement session showing the information that we've attained to date and developed to date. And then from November until January 2026, so essentially a year from now, we finalize the draft master plan. So the next slide shows the information that we have to draw on. So the active transportation plan that's going to be developed. We have great descriptions of all of the parks and the trails. I think it's all of the trails on the website, so we can begin to update and use that though. The census information, the growth strategy, and there are some great examples of master plans throughout the other districts. The one I was able to have a look at, and I've looked at quite a number, but the one I thought was a wonderful example was the Central Saanich plan that was done, I think, last year. So budget. We would like to have $20,000 available for the update process. Now, whether we use that all, I doubt it. But ideally, the budget would be used for display material, for mapping, graphic design, and possibly consultant support. But right now, the plan is for this to be done by PTASC, so it'd be done on a volunteer basis. So I might talk to Mr. Payette and see how we might be able to structure that, if there's a pot of money that we can access as needed. Yeah. And that's it. The one thing I just want to say though is why the master plan is important. The one thing is that we've seen from the the active transportation plan process, and even going way back to the Village Square process when there was a survey of what community members do. Walking is number one. Almost everybody seems to walk and get out. It's like Metchosin's national sport, and equestrian stuff as well. But walking is really important to this community. So Parks and Trails Master Plan will cover and update some of the information relevant to that. But green space, of course, is pivotal to Metchosen's identity. And the master plan covers so much of that too. So we have 18 trails and 4 major parks. If you think about Eleanor Man, Metchosen Wilderness Park, Buckbrush Swamp, and Blinkhorn Nature Park, we might also have the buffer land as part of that as well. So these, in terms of what Metchosenites do and how we identify with our community, this has some of the gold, if you will, in terms of those two things. That's a quick run through. Any thoughts or questions or?
Well, it seems like a really ambitious and worthwhile project. I mean, it's something that Parks and Trails are really integral to the whole being of Metchosen. So I think to update that plan and get public input on it is going to be really great. Councillor Donaldson.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Shukin. It is timely to update the master plan because, as we've noticed, a lot of the proposals that were in the existing or the previous master plan, we've accomplished. We've accomplished many trails, and I applaud PTAS for being a very ambitious group over the decades of sourcing trails when there's been subdivisions out there, clearing them, taking the branches and answering the calls when somebody phones in about a log down, or in some cases, not all trails are for bicycles. You have to step over that log, which often we do if we're hiking, running, or riding our horses, what have you. But wherever there's danger, the attention has been given. So I appreciate that, and the patience of when we have had funds for putting in the appropriate aggregate in muddy spots, that sort of thing. So it does take time, it does take planning, and having a master plan, an upgrade one, is great. I do have a question. You're asking the $20,000 for a budget item. Is the mail-out cost considered in that, within that budget? Yes.
It would be.
Okay. Because that sometimes can be expensive, or sometimes just putting an insert into our muse to cover the whole community. Well. So those are things to keep the cost down, but cover a broad spectrum of the community as well. So thank you for your work. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Thanks for the idea about the muse. Again, I would request the following motion. I don't know if I should move it, but I'll just read it out, that the committee recommend that council authorize the Parks and Trail Advisory Select Committee proceed with updating the district's Parks and Trails Master Plan based on the scope of work and timeline presented on January 13th, 2025.
Okay, moved by Councillor, did you get all that? Moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Mayor Little. Any more discussion? Right, call the question. All in favor? That is
Great.
passed.
Thanks very much. Oops.
Now, Councillor Shukin has a presentation on Council's 2025 priorities.
Okay. So the point of this next session is to talk about the priorities, what we came up with, but also, and do so in order to get your input. So we met in late December, we being council and a body of staff, to talk about what was ahead for 2025. And we came up with 11 sort of top line elements in terms of strategy and goals, and a number of other actions that support those. So I'll just go through those, and I'm gonna try and be no more than 10 minutes here, and then we can open it up to the floor for discussion. So the first one is really simple: support district staff in maintaining day-to-day operations in Metchosen. And I think this, more than anything, is an acknowledgement by council that there is so much work that goes on. Council is not the focus of the district and what it is. It's staff getting things done on a day-to-day basis. And so part of this is, again, to set expectations with residents and volunteers about service and responsiveness levels. There is so much to be done out there, so we just want to make sure that we're not, we're giving staff the due time that they can take to get things done, and also, again, setting realistic expectations. Next one is develop a responsible operations and capital budget for 2025. This goes without saying. One of the features, and I would just like to open up to the table if there's any comments from the rest of the committee members. One of the features that we'll see of the forthcoming budget is that there are going to be a number of non-discretionary items that we have to contend with. So that's everything from projected collective agreement settlements, policing administrative costs, and to the potential of a 911 download as well. That's something that the mayors in the communities that are impacted by this are continuing to fight. But the last we heard is that government is very determined to push those 911 costs on local communities. And that in itself would be close to a 3% increase, as I understand. One of the things that we'll try and do this year is assess the BC Community Building Fund, which we have $2.4 million. There's been some discussion about the best use. We looked to the potential of a new fire hall. That is a decent sum of money that might go there, but there's been also discussion about could we carve out a small portion of the fund to do more specific and smaller scale projects. So that'll come up later in this year in terms of fuller discussion and involving the community as well. Okay, so two things here that are significant, the school and the fire hall. So what's interesting, and I think everyone in the room knows, the school has gone through 3 councils now, each of whom have added something, a new sort of element to the evolution. So it was bought in 2017. The council after that got the grant for the gym and also found paying clients that were and are leasing. And we are now in a position to probably fulfill the original ambition of the school when it was purchased in 2017, given that the gym is finished and the classrooms are now open for business. So, but there continue to be some lingering questions about financing and the use of the school, and that's something we're going to try and address in 2025. There has, as again, everyone knows, a fire hall steering committee that was struck, and we're underway with a feasibility study. We should be getting that back at some point so we'll have mid-2025, thank you. We'll have a chance to assess the findings of that and see what direction we head in. As I understand, the steering committee met recently and they've appointed a smaller group to advise the company that has taken on the feasibility study, which seems like a fantastic outfit, lots of experience in terms of building firewalls. Provincial housing requirements, we are essentially by legislation bound to address those. The big things will be updating our OCP and land use bylaw by the end of this year to meet the projections that were basically uncovered, if you will, through the interim housing needs assessment that was done late last year. That showed a need for 852 homes in over a 20-year period. What in the discussion, if you were here that night, our planner believes that we can meet much of that within the confines of the current OCP and the land use bylaw, much, not all. And she's setting to work on that, and we should have the results of her assessment again in the coming weeks. Yeah. The one thing I will point out is that we have to do another assessment in 2028, and this future assessment in 2028 will actually be more fulsome in terms of bringing in community values. The one that we just went through was absolutely data-driven. Didn't matter if you were in Victoria or Peace River or up north or Metchosin, you had to follow the same data requirements. And it actually made, I would suggest, for a bit of a dumb model, but it's one that everyone has to follow. We have, and we're going to move ahead with it, but also look ahead to 28, 2028 as well. So update policies and bylaws around environmental protection, peaceful, livable community, housing requirements, and good governance. And we've been doing this since very early in the term. You can see the bylaws there that we're going to continue working on. Soil removal and deposit bylaw, again, being one of them that was mentioned earlier today. So, click it. Okay. Public safety matters. This is a big pot catching a number of things: road management plan, active transportation, safety issues posed by the trees on Lombard Drive, climate change matters, and also the district's accessibility plan. I'll mention that the accessibility plan was approved last week, and staff are going to be helping us with a number of things related to that. We'll be looking at improving access to information on the website. We've talked about improving the acoustics in the chamber, and ideally providing support for people with hearing aids as well. And there's a few other things. Parking at both the community house and the school, the old school. Okay, the school museum is also going to be addressed as well. So again, this was a provincial requirement. We got that done very quickly. So thanks to staff and especially Ms. Hanson for getting this moving. So, okay. Working to protect our environment, supporting initiatives focusing on land conservation, biodiversity enhancement, and water and watershed protection. To me, one of the marquee items here is address the buffer land. There was a conservation-oriented zone that was proposed, I think it was in October. The planner has this as well, and she's going to be coming back to us with more information about that as soon as she can. There's other action areas here as well, riparian areas, engaging the owners of tax-exempt properties on land protection, and also some broader work. Smart move, I think, to look at some of the work that had been done previously, the blue-green strategy, sustainability strategy, and the Uplands report. So that's likely going to be done through the Environment Committee. Okay, we're almost done. Again, support opportunities to enhance agricultural, recreation, and cultural activities, active transportation plan, and the agricultural plan being pivotal. And also we talked about the Parks and Trails Master Plan. So there we go. I think, yep, this is the last slide. So continue community engagement, and there have been a number of initiatives that were done last year. Anything from the Mayor's Tea to the session we did on Duke Road East on July 31st to the public hearings that we've had with council. And again, the advisory committees all have a public engagement element, and folks are welcome to come and speak to that. Last one is continue evolving and updating council governance processes, and you're witnessing one of the evolutions here tonight with the committee of the whole meeting. So Yanis, Councillor Rep mentioned, very, very historic night. Just blown away by the gravitas. Sorry. There we have it. There's a lot there, and to be quite honest, I think maybe there's too much there, but it sets us up, I think, for an ambitious year and a test to see if we can actually get some of this stuff done. So, okay.
Okay,
So, Councillor Rep, did we want to open the floor for folks to
yes.
comment?
Yes, so please.
Good evening, Brent Donaldson, Challister Court. Just a question regarding the housing initiative for the 800-odd dwellings. Is there a baseline now? And the reason I ask that is that there are folks that have maybe secondary suites that maybe aren't registered through land title, or not land title, the assessment authority. So we could have a good number of that 800 or odd already in place now, so we could be ahead of the game. So what is the method that they came up with that 800? Are they looking at the housing we have now off, what, a global map, or? Thank you.
So thank you for the interesting and very complicated question. The methodology that they used is really complicated. It's based on population, of course, and it's based on a number of criteria that in terms of growth targets that the province set out. Mr. Donaldson, you'd have to go back and have a look. There's a big, long explanation of the methodology used, and again, it applies to everybody in the province. And I apologize, I can't spell it out. What you raise, though, is about the potential of capturing more housing that exists currently, and seeing if that can go toward meeting our targets is an intriguing one. My sense is that is going to also be very complicated, because that so much depends on the owners coming forward and declaring that they have rental units. There's also the problem too, if some of those units haven't been built to building code standards, that is going to pose challenges. So as much as I'd like to think that some of those sort of below the table homes might help us, I'm kind of doubtful that it's going to be the case. But thanks, I'm going to bring this back to the planner and ask. So thank you.
Jim McPherson, Eagle Tree Place. I just have two questions. One is whether or not the person has been named for the district representative on the accessibility plan. And the other question I have is, what's the alcohol consumption policy?
So I can tackle the alcohol consumption policy.
As far as the accessibility committee, we were just waiting for all of the members from the different municipalities to name their representatives, and then they'll all be announced at the same time. I think it's probably going to be happening maybe Mary Little knows more about that than I do. It should be shortly.
So in terms of the policy, as I recall, this came up in early 2023 when we were reviewing one of the agreements with one of the organizations that we have a license of occupation with. And there was reference to alcohol consumption in that, but there was no backup policy. And so the consideration of the day was that we do and be explicit about what the policy is with the district. So that's essentially where it came from. So
Yeah, I think it was a lot to do with like district property and various events and things like that. So yeah, liability. So do we have any more input from gallery? Nope.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, I think you have a recommendation.
Well, what I would suggest is that I would move that the 2025 council priorities be moved to council for consideration of adoption. So,
Right, moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. Any discussion? All in favor? That passes. Right, that concludes the community planning section. We won't be going into the environment and natural areas section because Councillor Gray is not able to make it tonight. So in that case, I'll move on to Public Works and Protective Services. And I have a verbal update, which got a little longer than I expected. But anyway, I do want to mention the Metchosin Seniors Association is continuing to offer a variety of free informative programs at the Resource Centre. They began the new year with an ICBC driving safety presentation on the impacts aging has on driving. Coming up on the 16th is the monthly meeting of the Metchosin Caregiver Support Group. January 22nd, there's a Service Canada CRA presentation on government benefits and programs. January 29th features Ears to You mobile hearing testing. January 30th is a sleep workshop for those who have trouble sleeping. January 31st is the monthly Friday social drop-in hosted by the Highs of Metchosin at the community house. So people are interested in attending any of those programs. From what I understand, they've all been really good, but to contact the resource center. Some of them are required for registration, some of them are drop-in. As far as the public works crew, mostly they're on standby for winter weather conditions. I noticed the lights were all on there tonight when we got here. So possibly with the weather temperature dropping, I'm sure there'll be sanding and salting going on. They've been working on signs and doing maintenance on various signs, culverts, bridges, and grounds, along with, from what I understand, filling potholes at the community house. As far as the school, with 3 of the old school's 6 classrooms having long-term leases, including Mile Zero Brewery, Metchosin Preschool, and the Metchosin Wellness Collective now, which is set to open this spring. The facility is becoming quite a happening place. The other 3 classrooms have had a long list of renters, both for one-time and regular weekly use. A new renter is West Shore Parks and Recreation, which is offering pilot programs in first aid and exercise classes. Last week, more than 60 participants took advantage of 3 free Try-It classes in eccentrics and in functional fitness. They're both non-impact classes designed to improve strength and mobility. The eccentrics class offered to produce you a long and lean body. So I signed up. I've been waiting 75 years for a long and lean body. Anyway, these programs are a win-win situation for all involved. And one example of one that's often happening on the weekends, or one like that that's happening on the weekends, is the emergency management course. People attending this course have come from the Victoria Airport, the Gulf Islands, the Lower Mainland, the Mid-Island, and Metchosin. And the only other class, this emergency class of this type, is run by the Justice Institute in Vancouver. It costs nearly $200 more for participants than the one in Metchosin and requires attendees to pay for ferries, hotels, and meals on top of the class fee. Besides certification, the courses foster communication among departments, camaraderie, and coordination during emergencies, which benefits all of us. And there are a lot of programs like that going on in the school. And these, sort of just generally we call them training courses, but there are a lot of very valuable and informative courses. And this course, and all the others offered to members of emergency services outside Metchosin, is charged the commercial rate of $250 a day for the use of each classroom. And also one thing I did want to mention is that a lot has come up about the finance of the school. Well, our CFO, Mr. Creek, is working on a financial report about the school, which I think we'll all be looking forward to, and he's planning on bringing that forward next month. So that concludes public works portion. Now we have some correspondence from the Metchosin Arts and Cultural Center Association and PINKS on the similar topic from Avril Yoakum and Barb Sawatsky. So I was wondering, to put him on the spot, but would our CAO, Mr. Payette, be able to give us a little bit of update? I know that you met with the MACA folks recently. About, is there anything you can tell us about maybe what's coming up in the future with that?
Sure. Through the chair. How is that sounding, everyone? Good? So I had a chance to meet with MACA president, vice president, and members of their board last week. We had a conversation about their lease, their agreement, and reiterated that the overall building is running in the red, and that would be interested in working with MACA and partnering with them to find ways that they could help us with our revenue expense deficit. And we also talked about subleases and the use of space and how we can work together in the future. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Well, we'll receive the correspondence for information. I did have passed along a note from the mayor to say to remember there is tea with the mayor and the acting mayor this Thursday, starting at 2 p.m. in the chambers here. So hope to see you then. And we don't have any other business, so we'll call a motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Mayor Little. All in favor? Thank you. 8 o'clock. Yeah, I think accomplished what